The following program contains the views and opinions of the hosts, speakers, and participants. They do not reflect the policies of producers, advisors, and advertisers of Paws Radio, including Adelphi University's Board of Trustees, administrative faculty, or its affiliates. Paws Radio station encourages freedom of speech but does not endorse any specific viewpoints or messages. Listener discretion is advised, especially for potentially sensitive or controversial topics. Hey guys, it's your DJ Salma from Paws Radio. Today I decided I'd do a little break from just playing music and maybe talking about it. So today I wanted to talk about how Zayn Malik is going on tour and why that's kind of significant for a lot of girls. It's kind of like a rite of passage, sort of, to go through that boy band phase. Doesn't have to be One Direction, but it's just like a common shared experience for a lot of girls, especially ones that grew up in America. Honestly, girls everywhere, not even in America, scratch that. I remember when I went to Egypt, where my family is from, when did I go? I went in 2013, and I was just talking to my cousin and her friends about One Direction and how they were obsessed with it, and 5 Seconds of Summer and other boy bands like that. And I think it's always been such a shared experience for girls throughout time. Like, if you think about it, it goes back to even the Beatles or Queen, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, things like that. It's always brought girls together, and it's just been like a point of, like, a source of happiness for them, and it was something for girls to connect on, especially young tween girls. So it's just an interesting experience to see how girls have sort of like remained girls throughout time. And yeah, so the reason I wanted to bring this up is Zayn Malik released his tour dates the other week, which is significant because I'll give you a timeline. So One Direction was formed in about, I think it was 2010. They did not win X Factor. They got third place, X Factor UK. And their fame just skyrocketed from there. 5 guys from England and Ireland. Niall is from Ireland. And they literally became like a global sensation, selling out arenas. Literally one of the biggest boy bands of all time. And they just went through so many like phases in their career. Like, they switched up their look so many times to sort of fit what was needed at the moment. And as their fan base grew up, at first it was like a really innocent, very boy next door kind of look. And then it progressed to be more mature as the years went on. And that maturity that they started showing really got big just as Zayn left the group in 2015, and it only got more dark and serious after that. So yeah, Zayn left in 2015. I literally remember the day. I was such a big One Direction fan, and I love Zayn down. Like, I love that man. And it was just such a weird moment for me, because not that I didn't enjoy the music they were producing as a group, but I grew up not having any sort of people who represented me in the media. So I didn't see any other Muslims, any Arabs really being popular or well liked by fans. And when I learned that Zayn was Muslim, or like culturally Muslim, he had a Pakistani father, I really did cling on to that because it was so cool to me that someone who shared even a little bit of my background was so popular, and he was a part of the most popular, the biggest band on earth at the time. So I really did connect with him a lot for that reason. And I just love the way he sang, but it was a big thing like that representation that I really needed at the time. So when he left, I did create a detachment from the group because, like I said, that really was a big part for me. Zayn did sell the group to me, and he made a lot of their content more enjoyable. Every time they released a music video, I'll be like, okay, so where's Zayn at? Where's all the clips with Zayn? So yeah, when he left, he didn't really reveal too much about it at the time. Now we sort of know what was going on. There was tensions within the members of the group, and he had a lot of anxiety surrounding performing at the time. So that's all sort of known now, and he's talked about it in interviews, in his book, and through his lyrics. Actually, he does talk about that and how they were. He has a song called Good Years on his album Icarus Falls, and he talks about how they were sort of abusing substances to get through their performances, and just because it was so much to deal with. And he says in the song, I'd rather be anywhere but here, which is crazy to think about, because you think of how the sheer amount of fame that they had. At face value, you would think, oh my God, I would love that. They had so much money, so loved by people. But if you really look into how, specifically Zayn, I know the other members faced a lot of criticism and bullying, but if you look at how Zayn was treated in comparison to the rest of them, who are all white guys from England and Ireland, and I was from Ireland, it was very different because of the racial factor and the religious factor. So a lot of people would make very racist and Islamophobic jokes towards him. I remember there was one instance of Azalea Banks. I forgot what she said about him exactly. Let me look that up, because I remember it was really disgusting. So yeah, she called him a few slurs pertaining to his race and his religion, which is disgusting. That got her booted off of a show. And there was an interviewer who was trying to insinuate something about him because he had a water gun tattoo, which was crazy. I remember that interview. I think it was Pierce Brosnan, something like that. But yeah, so the treatment of Zayn was different because of the fact that he's Pakistani and was Muslim aligning at that time. So it may seem oh my God, just stick through it for the amount of money you're gonna get or the amount of fame, but at what cost does that come? Because you're facing so much criticism, and a lot of it is racially motivated. So at what point does it end? Which that isn't the only contributing factor to him leaving, but I would imagine that it was a big one, because it's a lot to deal with, especially at a young age. And when that's all you've really ever known since you've reached adulthood, because I think he joined the band when he was or the band formed when he was, I don't remember actually. Let me look that up. So the band formed when he was 17, and he left the band when he was 22, saying that he wanted to be a normal 22-year-old. So when and that's a really interesting time period in your life. I know when I turned 18, it didn't really hit me that I really became an adult until I turned 19, if that makes any sense. So when you're reaching adulthood and you've only ever known being in the public eye, like there's nothing you can do that won't be photographed or won't be talked about. It is really overwhelming. And especially when people are making jokes at your expense because of your background, like I can imagine how terrible that would be. So after he left the band, a year later he he started his solo career. And I love his first album, Mind of Mine, so much. My friend Evelyn got the vinyl for me, which was so rare to find. I don't know how she found it, and it's literally the best gift I've ever gotten in my life, because that album is so important to me. And I think it speaks to Zayn as an artist and what he wanted to give to the world, because there was a lot of different themes. Some were very upbeat and some were very mellow, but spoke to his thoughts and his feelings. And there was one song, Lucozade, that has like no bridge, no chorus, anything. It's just like a ramble sort of thoughts, and it's literally one of my favorite songs ever. It's so good. And I think it's such a unique body of work. And the intermission is in Urdu, his father's native tongue, which is such a beautiful song. It's so good. The intermission, Flower. And that's what I really liked. Like, he was starting to integrate his culture into the music. He was releasing like covers in Urdu of Bollywood songs, and he translated them into Urdu, I believe. But it was so beautiful to me because he didn't get a chance to really do that in the band, and it was never really like talked about. Obviously sometimes, but not to the point where he could like comfortably talk about it. But yeah, so that album did, I think, pretty okay in terms of sales. His single that he released, Pillow Talk, did really well, and it was like everywhere. And he did a few other songs that reached the charts. He collabs with Taylor Swift and with Sia. But other than that, he didn't see the level of fame that I think the other members saw, like Harry, Niall. And I think a big part of that is his sort of, or his past tendency to not do live performances, and the fact that he would drop out of a lot of live performances, which he cited was because of his anxiety. So I think that is a big contributing factor as to why he's not as successful as a lot of people thought he would be, coming from One Direction, which is like one of the most known bands of all time. But the importance of why he's starting to tour, literally, how many years is it? 9 years later after he left the band. 9 years is crazy, wow. But that importance is so large because it's his first tour ever as a solo artist on his solo journey. And yeah, that was my ramble. I'm trying to think of other things to talk about, but I can't. But that was my ramble on Zayn and him in the band. And I wish I got the tickets, but literally it was such a battle, and they're like $500 now. Anyway, yeah, that was my segment, and I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah.